VVF is a lighter platform mainly focused on vSphere based environments with essential features suitable for customers who don't need the full cloud stack. So VMware strategy now is very clear. Move from many individual products to platform based solutions. That's why we as engineers also need to update our skills. Earlier, knowing one product was enough, but now companies expect knowledge of the complete platform. So this change from 168 products to just VVF and VCF is the main reason why we are upgrading our skill set today. Now we are starting with module 1, which is course introduction. This slide, let's try to understand what is VCF. VMware Cloud Foundation is a complete platform that brings together compute, storage, and networking into a single solution. So instead of managing each component separately, VCF integrates everything and manages it as one full stack. So here, compute comes from vSphere, storage from vSAN, and networking from NSX. On top of that, we have automation and operation, which help us manage the complete environment. So in simple terms, VCF gives you a ready-made private cloud. We don't have to build everything from scratch. It is already designed, integrated, and validated to work together. So this is why in production, VCF helps reduce complexity and makes deployment and operations much faster and more reliable. All right, now let's talk about something very practical. Why VMware introduced VCF? We already have vSphere in our existing customer environments, right? We are using it for virtualization, running virtual machines, managing workloads. Everything is working fine. But there is a question in this situation, why VMware introduced this cloud foundation in the market and what was the need? Let's try to understand that. Now to understand why VMware introduced VCF, we need to look at how public cloud works. If you take platforms like AWS, Azure or Google Cloud, everything there is delivered as a service. We don't worry about hardware, we don't worry about complex networking, and we don't spend time doing manual setup. If you need a server or VM, you just click it and it's ready. If you need more capacity, you scale instantly. Even upgrades and patching, all of that is handled by the provider. So overall, the experience is very simple, fast, and automated, right? Now let's try to understand our current on-premises data center. So in our on-premises environment, we have vSphere, then we have virtualization, but still as administrator, we are doing a lot of works manually in the production support. So we deploy components separately, we configure storage, we configure networking, then we integrate everything and we take care of upgrades and patching. So what we really have is virtualization, but not a complete cloud experience. That's exactly the gap VMware wanted to solve here. So VMware introduced Cloud Foundation to bring that same public cloud experience into the on-premises data center. The idea is very simple. Your data center should behave like a cloud. With VCF, deployment becomes automated. Instead of setting up everything step by step, the full stack comes ready. The architecture is standardized, so every environment looks consistent. Lifecycle management is very easier, so upgrades and patching are not painful task for admins anymore. On top of that, we can enable self-service, whereas users can request VMs without depending on manual work every time. So normally, you might have seen in a normal vSphere environment, right? A customer will place an service request for creating new VM or adding additional resource. That is no more required for VCF. So instead of just managing infrastructure, we are going to start delivering infrastructure as a service as we do in the public cloud. So here VCF is not only going to provide a private cloud platform, VCF also enables hybrid cloud. That means our workloads can move between our on-premises environment and public cloud like VMware Cloud on AWS, for example. So no need to change architecture or tools. Okay, so everything remains consistent between my on-premises and the public cloud. So if we simplify this completely, vSphere gives us virtualization, but VCF gives us a cloud experience inside our own data center. So that was the vision, not just to virtualize the environment, but to transform the data center into a private cloud. And that's why today VCF is considered the foundation for private and hybrid cloud in most enterprise environments. Now, let's take a quick look at the evaluation of VMware Cloud Foundation. This timeline gives you a high-level overview of how VCF has grown from the early versions to what we have today. In the beginning, with VCF 2.x, it was more of a foundational stage where VMware started bringing all components together and introduced SDDC Manager for basic lifecycle management. That is from 2017 to 2018. Then in VCF 3.x, we started seeing expansion. Support for multiple clusters came in, and there was a transition from NSX-V towards NSX-T, along with the integration of vRealize suite. That is from 2018 to 2020. With VCF 4.x, things become more modern. This is where we got a more standardized architecture with the management domain and workload domains, and also the introduction of Kubernetes through vSphere with Tanzu. That is from 2020 to 2023. Then VCF 5.x focused more on scale and security. Then they bring improvements on in NSX, introduced vSAN, ESA, express storage architecture, and better lifecycle management, made it more production ready for large environments. That is from 2023 to 2024. And now with VCF 9.x, we are in the unified area. Everything is more consolidated with a single operations console. They simplified the management and they integrated our VCF with AI and modern workloads. So this is just a quick overview to give you the full picture. In the next slides, we'll go deeper into each session. Especially, we're going to focus on 4.x, 5.x, and 9.x, since these are more relevant for real-time production environment, right? So we'll focus on that. All right, now let's understand how VMware Cloud Foundation has evolved over time. If you look at this timeline, we can see different versions starting from 2.0 all the way up to 3.7. Let me explain this in a very simple way in the upcoming slides. In earlier versions like 2.0, 2.1, and 2.2, VMware was still building the foundation for VCF. At that time, deployment was done using something called VAA, which means VMware Integrated OpenStack. Along with that, we had core components like SDDC Manager, vCenter, ESXi, vSAN, and NSX-V. So basically